Welcome to the Wisdom That Breathes channel. Across all our platforms, we try to share wisdom which is relevant and accessible to everyone. But on this particular platform, we go deeper into some of the ancient principles found within the scriptures. If you find some of the terminology difficult or inaccessible, then go over to our Keshava Swami YouTube channel where you'll be able to find other content which is perhaps more relatable. Thank you and enjoy the wisdom that breathes.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. So we'll be starting another beautiful session by Mother Visakha and Yadubara Prabhu, Relationships of Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna. Wow, my goodness. Thank you.
It smells nice.
Yeah, really.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Thank you very much for coming today. Such a wonderful group, wonderful gathering, wonderful katha. And we hope to also make it continue to be wonderful by your blessings. So this is a very personal story, our coming to Krishna consciousness. Actually, everybody's story is special because we understand that this is Krishna. If we have some sincerity and some inclination for spiritual life, Krishna makes arrangements to guide us to the bona fide spiritual master. And in turn, the spiritual master gives us back Krishna. So our story starts back in 1970. Actually, we were boyfriend, girlfriend, Jean and John, at the Rochester Institute of Technology, which had a very strong photography department. Actually, Kodak company was situated also in Rochester. So they were funding this school. And I was in the master's degree program, and Visakha Devi was in the undergraduate program. Can you tell everyone how we met?
Yeah, it was. We had a professor who was common to us both, and he asked all his students to help hang an exhibition of photographs in the student union. So somehow we both volunteered independently of each other, and so at this very first hanging, I saw John, and immediately I thought, he's the one. Which was very strange, because I never had that thought about anyone prior to that. Very peculiar.
Actually, a little bit more elaborate, a voice went off in her head, he's the one. So I didn't have any voices go off in my head, I just went along with the ride. So our story starts actually in the Brooklyn Temple, Henry Street. This is summer of 1970. So in that summer, I was called by the editor of Asia magazine to do a story on the Hare Krishna movement. I had deposited my pictures from when I was in the Peace Corps in Malaysia. He liked them very much. He was an Indian gentleman. So he was very intrigued with the devotees, so he wanted an article in his magazine, Asia magazine. So Visakha and I went there and did that article. I took the photographs, she did the article. But she was of a kind of a different opinion than I had of other devotees.
Yeah, I was raised in an atheistic family. My mother had belonged to the church, the Roman Catholic Church here in the UK. And my father was brought up in the Jewish tradition, and they both felt that it was simply rituals without any substance. So they gave it up completely, and they raised my brother and me as atheists. So I had no training at all in spiritual life, and really no interest in spiritual life.
But you did write a good article. So this magazine came out, 630,000 copies. It was distributed in 9 countries in Southeast Asia. And interestingly enough, Prabhupada went to that part of the world in 1971. So hopefully this magazine, people read it and had a little preview of Prabhupada's stay there. So in December of 1970, I decided I had to do a master's thesis in photography. So I decided, let me go to India to meet Prabhupada and do my master's thesis on his activities in India. So that was an amazing time. Actually, Prabhupada called many of his devotees to go in September of that same year. I arrived in December, and the result of devotees coming to India at that time was just incredible. I can imagine after hundreds of years of subjugation by the Muslims and the British, finally Vaishnavas came to the shores of India. So people were just, they were absolutely thrilled to see them. Of course, there was a lot of skepticism also. Actually, the Indian government was thinking that we were CIA. They just actually investigated thoroughly, but they couldn't find any evidence. So Prabhupada took India by storm at that time with his Western disciples. These are actually, many of them are photographs from still movie frames. We have a movie, as you know, runs at 24 frames a second. So there's actually a lot of wonderful pictures amongst the movies. So this is an example of Bhaktivinoda Thakur's prediction that people from all different races would come together under the banner of Harinam. So Prabhupada traveled all over India during those 4 or 5 months with his Western disciples. And whenever they stopped at a train station, they would jump off the platform. This is Yamuna Devi at Mathura. And they would have Harinam. And immediately, all over India, this happened, so many stations all over India. So this spread the word very quickly that devotees have come to India. This is Surat. You may have seen pictures and films of Surat. This was a very devotional town in Gujarat city. And devotees were received very wonderfully.
Yeah, for the devotees' arrival in Surat, the mayor of Surat declared a holiday for the factory workers and also the students. So everyone was free. And in the newspapers, they would publish where the devotees would have their Harinam. So the residents of Surat would line the streets where the devotees were going to go. Sometimes they would even cover the streets with saris so that it wasn't the intense sunlight.
Sorry.
And as they walked, the people would come and give them so many garlands, sometimes offer incense. It was just phenomenal. Whereas in the West, when the devotees went on Harinam, the people would scowl and sneer at them and say, get a job. So it was completely opposite reaction.
This is changing bodies. I think Guru Das Prabhu took this picture. So anyway, I just showed up one day in the midst of devotees. And it was a photographer's dream, actually, compared to the streets of New York. And I asked Prabhupada if I could stay and travel with his party. And he said, are you going to become a devotee? Here I was. And I said, I don't think so, Prabhupada. So So Prabhupada said something that shocked me again. He said, then you cannot stay. So I just arrived in Surat, no place to stay, didn't know anyone. So they kindly put me up that night. And then I got up in the morning and nobody said anything, and Prabhupada didn't say anything. And I stayed for 2 months. So this is an example of Prabhupada's knowing our mind and heart. He actually understood I had a little interest in Krishna consciousness. This is the second night I was there. Visakha was still in the States at that time. And there was a huge program. You can see the whole street was closed. Thousands of people came out to see the Western Vaishnavas. And again, the streets were decorated every morning, depending on where the Harinam was taking place in the city. To see how eager they are to greet the Harinam party. And we couldn't go more than a few steps without being, garlands and sandalwood paste and drinks and even arti to the Harinam party. This is Malati Devi. And Prabhupada would take his morning walks every day by the river. I went to this same place some years ago, and it was completely built up on both sides. Surat today is a huge city. And Durlabh Prabhu in the background leading the Boy Scouts in Harinam. You can see that small camera on his wrist. He was responsible for taking many of the photographs. The films from which these photographs are coming. This is a small town outside of Surat. There was engagements 3 or 4 times a day, and Prabhupada was actually tireless. He just kept going and going and going, preaching constantly. I took many photographs. He was very animated during this particular lecture. In every lecture, he would encourage the Indian people to become Krishna conscious and spread it all over the world. And today we see that happening on a big scale. Back then, there were very few Indian devotees in the party. This is Mangal Arti in Srila Prabhupada's room. Probably the most intense Mangala Artis I've ever attended. About 25 devotees in a fairly small room. That's Yamuna Devi leading. Prabhupada would often ask her to lead kirtan. Of course, we hear her every day greeting the deities with the Govindam prayers. Again, 4 or 5 engagements per day. This is Prabhupada's regal pose. This is Kumbh Mela, 1971. And Prabhupada instructed the devotees to do 3 things: deity worship, Harinam, and prasad distribution. I don't think there were many camps that had any of those, actually. We rarely saw deity worship. This man would seek out Prabhupada every day. When he found him, he would come up to him, pay obeisances, and start jumping up and down. Prabhupada liked him very much. You can see a little Saraswati on Shamsundar Prabhu's shoulders. Prabhupada said she was a great preacher. She would run up to people and grab their sari or dhoti and say, "Guess what?" And they would look down and they would say, "What?" And she would say, "Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and you should surrender to Him." And she would cause a sensation with her. Every time there was kirtan, especially on stage, she would start, raise her arms up and start dancing. This charmed everyone. So Prabhupada could have stayed with us. I mean, he did stay with us, but he could have stayed in a hotel or at the Gaudiya Math, where he lived for many years, serving as a grihasta. But he chose to stay with us in very, very cold conditions at that time. And then one day he took us to the Gaudiya Math, Sri Rupa Gaudiya Math. There's Does anyone know the names of the deities at this temple? Hmm?
Gandarika Giridhari.
Gandarika Giridhari. Thank you. This is in Benares. There was a parade through the streets. I believe it was the time that celebration of Rupa Goswami's meeting Lord Chaitanya in Benares. Wherever Prabhupada went, he was greatly honored. He was India's national hero. There's Jayapataka Swami on the lower left. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki.
Jai.
Again, these are pictures taken from movie frames. This is the gateway of India in Mumbai. And going to Mumbai, Prabhupada had asked his disciples to set up the Cross Maidan Pandal. Prabhupada would arrange for these huge programs to be performed in the major cities of India.
Yeah, I attended this pandal, I think March, April 1971, and it was truly extraordinary. It comfortably accommodated 10,000 people, but on the weekends they would get 20,000 people. And they would just sit in rapt attention watching the Westerners perform arti and dance and chant in Sanskrit slokas also. Then they would listen to Srila Prabhupada, his discourse every evening. And then at the final part of the pandal, Prabhupada very often had Jamuna lead the kirtan because she had an ability to engage the audience. So it wasn't simply a performance, but they would also chant Hare Krishna, which Prabhupada appreciated very much. This is Jamuna there in the foreground.
So you can see the huge crowds. Actually, this is the time when Srila Prabhupada called that sadhu, Western sadhu, out of the audience to come sit next to him on stage. You know who that was? Yes, His Holiness Radhanath Swami. And that was Prabhupada's mystical potency to pick him out of the audience. He knew his future. Actually, His Holiness Lokanath Swami was also at that pandal when he first met devotees. And another devotee, his name is Dadiharta Prabhu. Dadiharta Prabhu is from Canada, so he recalls listening to Prabhupada's lecture that he couldn't understand it. Prabhupada's accent was so foreign to him. But he said one thing came through, and that was surrender. And eventually he did. He became a disciple of Srila Prabhupada.
So the final night of the pandal was a Sunday, and there was a marriage ceremony. And the Indian people especially love marriages. So the pandal was packed to the gills, and the young man was from Sweden, and the young lady was from Australia, getting married. And Prabhupada mentioned that in his talk, and then he said, this is the real United Nations, and 20,000 people cheered at one time. It was just a phenomenal experience.
Yep. So this is Subal Swami performing the marriage sacrifice. And you can see that Western sadhu up in the upper left corner of the picture. I think this is the only picture we have of Radhanath Swami at that time. You see him with long black hair? upper left corner. So Prabhupada was so pleased by the attendance of the Cross Maidan Pandal and all these pandals all over India.
So in college I had a term paper about close-up photography, which is called macro photomacography, and I took it to a publisher who made it into this book. This is my maiden name, legal maiden name. So I took a copy or two of the book with me to India, and when I first met Prabhupada, we showed it to him. And he actually, was a thin book, like 120, 30 pages. So he actually looked through it, and you can see just from the way that he looked at the book that he knew all about publishing. He looked at the quality of the printing, the quality of the binding, the quality of the cover and the paper, and so on. And he took his time with it. He had beautiful, long, Brahminical fingers, and he turned it page by page to see the illustrations and so on. And then he handed it back to us, and he said, "We do not know much about these things." So I took it that he was referring to the subject of close-up photography, but he knew everything about printing. Go ahead. Yeah, we used to wander the streets taking photographs. It was such a foreign environment for us to be in India for the first time.
So we had another idea, because my thesis was pretty much done after 2 months. So we wanted to do a photo essay on a quaint Indian village, untouched by Western technology. So we asked Prabhupada where to go. And he said, wherever you go, you'll get your camera stolen and they will cheat you. He said, best to go to Vrindavan. So we did that, but first we took our pictures around Bombay and then went to Nepal. Oh. This fellow was outside Cross Maidan, but nobody was paying attention to him. Everybody was inside.
Yeah, we spent a month trekking in Nepal. India was very hot at this time of year, so we went to get some relief from the heat. Extraordinarily beautiful country. We stopped for 3 days to rest at the top of the mountain. No, not quite the top, but close to the top for us. It was at the snow line. It was about 10,000 feet. And then from the bottom of his backpack, John gave me a blue paperback, which is the abridged version of Bhagavad Gita as it is. And he said, you should read this. So I love to read, but I found I could not understand the book at all. I couldn't make head nor tail of it. Yet I had a strong feeling that the book could really give me direction in life and values and a goal that would be substantial. So it was quite a mystical experience there for me. Then we went to Vrindavan, as Prabhupada had instructed us, or suggested, and I became fascinated by the widows of Vrindavan. They would chant every morning for 3 hours in different temples, and although they didn't have much skill in singing or playing the instruments, they sang with such sincerity, such feeling, that it really moved me and made me curious about spiritual life. Yeah, so all of Vrindavan, I think many of you, most of you have been there, is just imbibed with Krishna consciousness. The stores are full of devotional paraphernalia, and the people are absorbed so much in Krishna consciousness. So it was transformative for me.
Actually, we made a film at that time, actually some years later, in 1977 to 79, called Vrindavan Land of Krishna. So if you want to see the old Vrindavan as it was, then you can watch that film. It's on our YouTube channel, Hare Krishna Film Classics. So we went to Calcutta on the invitation of Guru Das and Yamuna Devi to produce a Vyasa Puja book for Srila Prabhupada in 1971. This is the Calcutta temple. This is 10 months after I met Srila Prabhupada. At that time I took Diksha. And it was the same ceremony that Jananivas Prabhu was in, October 1971.
So Prabhupada went to Delhi for another pandal, and here he got off the plane and was greeted by these dignitaries, the mayor of Delhi, the governor of the province. Many people recognized his contribution and honored him.
Actually, some devotees think that Prabhupada wasn't very successful before he came to America. But actually he was very successful in preaching to the intellectual class, the upper class. So much so that when we came back to India, they would invite us to their homes, they would try to arrange programs for us. He was very successful in that way. Again, thousands and thousands of people every night.
This is Sri Sri Radha Gokulananda. Before this time they were Radha Krishna, but they were worshipped in the Delhi Pandal at this point.
So this is another example of Prabhupada's magic, his mystical potency, to transform atheists from atheist to president of the Bhaktivedanta Manor. Haribol! Sometimes Indian people would ask Prabhupada in those days, can you show us something mystical? Produce some gold or ashes as was currently being done by some. So Prabhupada would always point to his devotees. This is my mystical potency. Because to change a person's consciousness is very, very difficult. So Prabhupada has done that with us and with so many of you and all over the world that's going on. So that's his incredible mystic power. Prabhupada at the Delhi Pandal.
So after the Delhi Pandal, Prabhupada took a small group to Vrindavan. And it was very wonderful because Prabhupada was the same, whether he was before 20,000 people or just a handful of devotees or in a room by himself. Just really focused on Krishna, whatever the situation. Here he's showing people around the Radha Damodar temple. There are many, many bhajan kutirs and samadhis there. He also took us to Bersana, and as you probably know, there are many, many steps. The temple is high on the hill, so he went in a palanquin. At first, the devotees didn't want the palanquin professional palanquin carriers to carry him, so the devotees, some strong devotees, took it up. But they didn't know the art. There's an art to everything. And Prabhupada was swinging back and forth. So then he said, let the professionals carry.
This is Prabhupada telling the story of Mother Yasoda seeing the universe in Krishna's mouth. His eyes got very big when he was describing it. This is at Brahmakund. And we all went for a swim at that time. And then Prabhupada finally came in. He was reluctant at first, but we begged him to come in and join us. Here's Visakha Devi on the left. And this is Dr. O.B.L. Kapoor, Prabhupada's godbrother. They're very great friends.
So we were married at this time in Vrindavan, 1971, November. Hare Krishna. I was also initiated at this time. And although Gurudas took many pictures, he was very involved in other things. So we were the photographers at this point. And because we were involved in the ceremony, we hadn't been thinking about taking pictures of it. So in the middle of the ceremony, Malati came up to me and said, "Where's your camera?" So I gave her my camera, so this is the one picture that we have from our wedding, by the grace of Malati, because it never crossed our mind to take pictures. So
I just think of our daughter's wedding, thousands of pictures and videos. We got one picture.
Prabhupada was sitting on the dais. You can just see the white corner of it on the left there. So he would take us around to different places in Vrindavan.
This is Jaipur. Prabhupada was hosted by Gayatri Devi, who was the queen of Jaipur at that time. And, wonderful programs. I remember Srila Prabhupada singing the Brahma Samhita every night. Again, big welcome and celebration, parade through the streets for Prabhupada. So this is Mayapur landscape, 1971, actually 72. And we just got in the land. This is the first billboard or sign. And this is Prabhupada's hut. At that time, that was the only permanent structure in Mayapur. Prabhupada would go for, again, morning walks every morning. This is the Pandal. Want to describe that?
Go ahead, I don't remember So for the occasion of Gaur Purnima, Prabhupada invited some of his godbrothers from Mayapur to come. And about 10 came, and they sat together on the stage. A few of them spoke also. And then there was a very deep pit where Prabhupada laid the foundation for the temple of the Vedic planetarium. It was so deep that now the metal detectors can't detect the metal way down there, so no one's actually sure where exactly that pit is, but it's somewhere on our Mayapur property. Some devotees say that today, they say at that time we were eating too much halva, so we weren't thinking very clearly. This is Yadubara Prabhu receiving Gayatri from Srila Prabhupada.
Visakha Devi took the picture, and I took a picture of her getting Gayatri. You saw that maybe earlier. There it is.
In the back, just between our heads, is Pishima, that's Prabhupada's sister, who looked very much like him.
This is prasadam distribution. Prabhupada at that time, he said, no one should go hungry within a 10-mile radius of the temple. He came out one day and saw children going through the remnants, the leaf plates with little prasadam on them, scraping it off and trying to eat something. So then he made that request. So this is Juhu. At that time, there was a very, very small temple. We all know the story of Prabhupada's struggle to get the Juhu property. A great battle. Giriraj Swami has written a wonderful book, I'll Build You a Temple. Prabhupada asked for that book to be written. He said it was such a great battle to get that. And something should be written. the history. There's more, but it's not working.
This is where I think we first started Guru Puja
Yeah.
at this time. Before that, we didn't have the Guru Puja that's now a regular part of our morning program.
This is Haridas Prabhu getting initiation. Haridas, you may know the story, but he was a thief, professional thief. And he was in jail, and he got a back to Godhead somehow in jail. He saw a picture of Prabhupada wearing this beautiful gold watch. So, so he was thinking, when I get out of jail, I'm going to meet this man and steal his watch. So he came to Hare Krishna land, this is in Juhu, and we were some of the first devotees he met. So I had my camera, and he was looking very, suspiciously at the camera. And so we taught him a little bit about photography, and I think you gave him beads, right? Yeah, Visakha gave him beads to chant on. So anyway, he became a devotee, and interestingly enough, he became a huge video producer, ISKCON Television of India, and spread Krishna consciousness through the video media all over the world, actually. But then he went to see Prabhupada after he kind of had a change of heart. And he told Prabhupada, I wanted to steal your watch. And Prabhupada took off his watch and gave it to him at that time.
So after the evening arti, Prabhupada would receive the entire tray of Mahaprasadam, and then he would put a little bit, and there would be a queue, and he would put a little bit in each person's hand. And sometimes the children would come and take some and eat it, and then go to the back of the queue and come up again. And Prabhupada would recognize them and go like this, but he would give them more Mahaprasadam anyway.
This is the groundbreaking ceremony for the Radharasa Bihari temple in Juhu. So while we were in Juhu, we got a letter we spent actually 2.5 years serving Prabhupada in the Juhu temple. We got a letter during the end of that time asking us to come to America to make a film on the movement, because there was no movies at the time. And Prabhupada liked that idea. Karandar Prabhu, the head of the BBT, suggested it. And Prabhupada liked the idea. In fact, he funded $16,000 for the film. And that was coming from the book fund. So we can understand that even back then, Prabhupada knew the value of media, movies. And that $16,000 today would be about over $100,000 US. So it was quite a risk, actually. And so we bought equipment and we bought tickets around the world and made the Hare Krishna People film. What's the time?
I don't know. The first place that we went was for the installation of Radha Gokulananda at Bhaktivedanta Manor. We have 8 minutes. 8 minutes.
So this is the camera that I was using at the time. 20 pounds and very bulky. The padding around the camera was to keep it quiet. Prabhupada didn't like noisy cameras. This is the tape recorder that Visakha used, recording the sound and the visual were separate camera and audio. And this is our editing system. It was hand wound, and you could never, wind it at the right speed, 24 frames a second. So a lot of guesswork in making that first film. again. So we went on to make further films. Prabhupada saw 4 of them. The Hare Krishna People, Brilliant as the Sun, The Spiritual Frontier, and Spark of Life. So again, all those films are on our YouTube channel. So this is LA. This is part of the Hare Krishna People film. LA, 1973. Maybe 6 years after Prabhupada started. They had this huge operation, printing books and sending them all over the world. Again, Prabhupada's potency to organize all this and enthuse the devotees to do these huge projects. So that's the end of our presentation. Thank you very much. Do you have any questions or comments? We have a few minutes.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much for the wonderful presentation. I wanted to share that doing temple services every day can be a little bit physically demanding on the body, but I think falling in love with Prabhupada and his movement was largely due to your movies as well. And so when things get tough, we just tune in and we get absorbed so deeply and we feel like we're in those pastimes already. And when we engage in the services again, we feel like we're just living in today's pastimes, just expanding and growing on Prabhupada's movement. But a lot of the nectar we get is from your work. And so I was able to understand him very closely, and we can see his divinity, his transcendence, and get a lot of inspiration from that. So I thank you so much for putting his life in such a nice chronological, sequential order so that we, and many future generations as well, can get to really know Prabhupada's true potency and what he left behind. So thank you so much for the great work that you left behind for us.
Thank you.
Mention that we have the pin drive available. Pin drive, mention the pin drive.
Yeah, the Following Srila Prabhupada series is a 31-hour series. We interviewed 500 devotees. So as you watch the movies of Prabhupada, you hear first-hand accounts of that time and place. If you listen to the whole series, 31 hours, you'll learn a lot about Prabhupada. So we encourage everyone to do that. We actually have a pen drive available. We're out of stock now, but we're taking orders. And the pen drive has all our early films. It has the latest film, Hare Krishna, the mantra of the movement, and the Swami who started it all. And it's about, I think, over 50 hours. And there's a sample in the back table if you'd like to take a look. And if you want one, just contact me on email. Yes.
Hare Krishna, thank you for the presentation. I wanted to ask if you could share an experience or moment which hasn't been captured on video or photography that you thought would be inspiring to us. Because we've seen many of the movies and the photos, but or maybe an interview that you had from a disciple, but they, for some reason, decided that they didn't want it to be shared, in the collections that you've made. Something off the record.
Say that again?
Something off the record.
Off the record.
A world premiere today.
I had an experience. I was in Juhu waiting for Srila Prabhupada to go on his morning walk. He would go from 6 to 7, walking very briskly on the Juhu beach. And I didn't miss a day because it was such an ideal time for photography. The light was gentle and Prabhupada was very expressive. And the background was wonderful, the ocean. So I was just sitting chanting japa with my camera waiting for him. And it was still a little bit dark. And he passed by me. He was just inches away. He came very quietly, so I didn't see him. And as he passed by, he glanced at me and he said, "Thank you very much." And at first I thought, I'm just sitting here. Why is he thanking me? And then I thought, no, I'm chanting japa. And Prabhupada saw that and expressed gratitude for that. And so I think that he is grateful for all his followers who follow his instructions, the first and primary one being chant a minimum of 16 rounds every day. So I think he's saying thank you very much to all of us who make that sincere attempt. Hare Krishna.
By the way, Visakha Devi has never missed a day without chanting 16 rounds. Even, even during childbirth, twice. Yes.
Hare Krishna. Thank you again for this wonderful presentation. And it's inspiring because I always think if we don't capture moments like this in such high quality, they're lost forever. This question has been something that I've always wanted to ask both of you. Is there any particular instruction that Srila Prabhupada gave you in terms of photography or videography that you cherished?
About photography or video?
Yes.
Don't put down your camera.
Yeah. We were at the Paris installation of the deities, 1973, and there was after the installation there was a big kirtan in the temple. So I had my still camera. I was taking pictures of the kirtan, and then I put it down at one point. I wanted to dance in the kirtan, so I joined the kirtan, and then I looked at Prabhupada. At one point, I looked at Prabhupada. He went like this to me. Come here. And the kirtan was rip-roaring. It was really loud. So I had to go really close to Prabhupada's mouth to hear him with my ear. And the words came out, never put down your camera. So I ran back and got it and started taking pictures again. So.
I think we have to stop. I think it's time. Yeah.
Is it time? Yeah. Anything else?
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your wonderful service with all of us, for connecting and bringing us closer to Srila Prabhupada. We're completely indebted because of your service that most of us that haven't had the good fortune of being in Srila Prabhupada's physical presence, we're able to actually feel closer to him through your work, through your photos, through your films. And so for us, and as Prabhu said, for generations to come, you have captured Srila Prabhupada for us. So thank you very much. How was that session for everyone? Yeah? Very cool.
Thank you. Just the last word about the Hare Krishna movie. Please share it as much as possible. There's a QR code. There's a few sheets of paper posted. I'm carrying one. I'm a walking QR code. Please share it as much as possible. Give others the opportunity to have darshan of Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.